Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. You're probably wondering if I fell off the face of the earth because of how few episodes we've been able to get done during this very busy hunting season. So Marcus and I are here talking about broken legs and broken promises. And here it is, December, 16th, something like that. And I don't have any good excuse other than all the places and all the distractions I've had. Fortunately, we lined up a bunch of podcasts before the season that I hope you got benefit out of to kind of get us through the season. We probably shouldn't have rolled them all out in August. We probably should have held them and scattered them through the season, but it is what it is. So here we are today where we're going to talk about some really interesting things that this last season that we just wrapped up kind of illustrate and point out. You'll probably see it, these stories and ideas in the content that we produce and publish. We're just lucky that all of you are here and you listen and you trust us, because there's a lot going on right now. This is probably the most distracted hunting season I've ever had. And when I say distracted, I'm talking about all the distractions of things going on in D.C., things going on in state legislatures, things going on out in the landscape of really critical habitats to the west, western Wyoming, parts of Colorado, parts of Nevada, parts of Montana. I mean, we're not going to get to cover them all in this podcast. They're just, you're going to hear a lot of podcasts going forward where we talk about lack of public input, changes to how the conservation infrastructure of America has worked and how it's changing rapidly, changing without much input from the public. And, you know, that's always challenging. How do you communicate that? How do you not, inflame people or get people all wound up and mad at you when you just are pointing out facts? So there's a way to communicate that, and hopefully our years of doing this, we've become good at it. So this episode, Marcus and I are going to talk about his brother's mountain goat hunt. That when you hear about the broken leg, you're going to be like, oh my gosh. And then we're going to get into a bunch of what I call broken promises, where elected officials are like, okay, if we get this, we promise you that's kind of the end of it. And those promises usually get broken pretty quickly. So that's what we're going to talk about. And appreciate you all being here. Appreciate your patience. If you are still around, appreciate you being patient in all this. But I got a whole long list of podcast guests and issues lined up for the next 6 months. And we're going to get back on track. And I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it's before Christmas or after Christmas. And thanks for being here. Enjoy. Well, Marcus, what a season, huh?
Yeah. It was a lot of days in the field, but
yeah,
we don't necessarily have a ton to show for it.
I know.
Compared to how many days we were in the field.
I know. That's a lot of people, like I was down in Vegas doing that volunteer event for RMEF last week. And the first question everybody always has is, how was your season? And I almost sheepishly am like, well, how much time you got? And I think the way I summarize it with everybody is the previous 2 seasons, I felt like I got more than I deserved. I'd just show up and something would be there. And that stuff balances out over time. Had no idea it was all going to balance out in one season. I think we told some really cool stories while we were out there. It'll be interesting to see if the people, the audience, is that tied to the idea that we gotta fill every tag.
Yeah.
Because this year, I did not fill a tag.
But that being said, you hunted with a lot of people who filled
Right.
tags. And so I think
Right.
that's, I don't know. I
Yeah.
can definitely respect that, because I think there was moments where you probably could have filled a tag, but you
yeah.
opted to let others fill their tag instead. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
understandable from that standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, probably in my mind, and I've not seen the footage, I've just heard the story from you, but your brother John, you guys had that mountain goat hunt. How many years had he applied in Montana to get that tag?
So he actually, that was his second goat tag.
Oh,
believe it or not.
really?
Yeah. So he drew
Oh.
one when he was in high school, but it'd been 21 years since
the last
then.
one.
Yeah. So
Okay.
21 years, but he did have a tag when he was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. Did he fill that tag when he was in high school?
He did. So
Okay.
that's another story, but it was like he wasn't as into hunting at the time, I
Okay.
will say. He
Yeah.
had a girlfriend, and that was more important in high school. And so we hunted it some, but then we had seen this lone nanny. She didn't have a kid,
Yeah.
and we'd seen her multiple times that season. And
Yeah.
at the very end of the season, we went back and found
Okay.
her, and he
Shot
killed
her.
that nanny. And since then, he has kind of regretted that, or not necessarily. I shouldn't say regret. I mean, it was what it was at the
He
time.
wanted
But
a do-over.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
he was very excited, and like he's just like very into hunting now, very excited about the current year mountain goat tag, and like
Yeah.
wanted to kill a mature billy, do it right,
Yeah.
spend the season in the high country, and just like really just get after it. And
Yeah.
I mean, like he scouted a bunch in the summer, despite having 3 kids
Yeah.
and family to take care of. So
Yeah.
super busy summer, but still was able to get out a bunch. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So you
that's
guys went in there with llamas, went way back in.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, do we want to just dive? Yeah, we can just
Yeah,
dive into that
because
story.
the title of this podcast is Broken Legs and Broken Promises. So
Yeah.
right there's the spoiler alert.
Well, yeah, and then even to roll back a little bit, like, because last winter I tore my patellar tendon, and so
Yeah.
I wasn't going into this season 100%.
Right.
So I was kind of nursing knee injuries, but
Yeah.
I was feeling pretty good by September.
Were you?
Yeah.
You went and tested it out in a really difficult hunt in August.
Yeah, that was dumb. Yeah, we
Yeah,
really
dumb.
yeah, 'cause-
Marcus seldom admits something was dumb, so it had to really be painful.
yeah,
Because you and Rocky both had knee problems,
yeah,
right?
the same knee problem. We both tore our patellar tendons.
Best friends, same winter,
Just
same
it's
injury.
Weird, yeah, it's just super weird. And it's not that I mean, ACL is way more common
Yeah.
of a knee injury,
Than
and
a
then we
patellar.
just happened to both tear our patellars. But anyway, yeah, that hunt we definitely pushed it to the limits, because we flew in on a float plane, and we were planning on going to a spot that was much easier to
Yeah.
access the deer, like the huntable terrain, and
Yeah.
it was too clouded in that spot. And so the pilot's like, do you have a backup plan? I'm like, sure. And the backup plan turned out to be, I knew it was going to be way more difficult, and it was. It was a lot of work. But anyway, that's,
You and Rocky and Kara did that one. But back to John's goat hunt.
Yeah.
So you're already nursing your knee, trying to follow the regimen required.
Yeah, it's that, and it's funny because it's like around that time of the year, it's like you really get trapped into feeling like everything's good, because everything does feel really good going uphill, even with weight. But it's downhill with weight. That's the hard part. So if you kill something and then you start packing it out, you're like, oh, yeah, it's not back to normal yet. So
Yeah.
you really get trapped into getting to the tops of mountains, and then
You got to get back
you
down.
got to get back down. Trekking poles were kind of a savior in that respect.
Yeah.
But
So anyhow, how did he break his leg?
well, so yeah, as you said, we got the llamas, so that's what we wanted to do this hunt, right? So it was my brother John and my dad Brian, all went in with the llamas, and like I think we set up camp like 7-ish miles in, and kind of with the goal of like exploring the mountain range. Like we wanted to just like get up on top and bop down and just kind of glass down into all these different drainages.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a fun way to do it. It's like, because in this mountain range too, and I'm sure a lot of mountain ranges, that the goats aren't necessarily at the top.
Right.
They're kind of, a lot, especially the billies are kind of down in these side drainages. They're not, but that being said, it was like, well, let's start at the top, like peek down into these side drainages, see if we can figure out where they're hanging out. And then it was this kind of more about the adventure and experiencing the whole range rather than just killing a billy right away.
Yeah.
And honestly, I thought like killing a billy was the least of my worries from my mind, because there's so many goats in this area. There's like a ton. There's also a ton of tags, so they give out quite a few tags. And so I was just like, well, let's make it an experience, because if we just want to kill one, we're going to kill one on the first or second day.
Yeah.
And so that was probably mistake number one, was just like thinking that it was going to be easy to kill a goat.
Yeah.
And yeah, because John's in really good shape. He runs ultra marathons, trail runs, like runs to the top of mountains frequently.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, if we want to get one killed, we'll get one killed pretty easy. But my dad also wanted to go. He's older, so having the llamas was pretty clutch for him. So we rented the llamas from Bo, and we're able to, get up to the top of the mountain, get my dad's stuff, I guess, up to the top of the mountain range. He still had to walk himself, but no, and we were having a blast. Like, it was, I think we were 6 days into the hunt, and we had been exploring, like looking into all these drainages. We had seen some billies. One in particular was a really big one that we were trying to get killed, but he was just like in these it was like cliffs and trees, and it's just like there was no cross canyon shot. Even if you were a long range guy, like, I mean, you're a mile from where you can like glass across to that. Otherwise, it's a straight timber. There's no like looking into it. So we glassed this billy from 2-3 miles away, and then we would go get on those cliff faces, basically just try to wait for him to pop out 100 yards or less was kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Never did get that one killed. And so then we started exploring into some other drainages, and we found a billy that we were 7 miles in, and then this billy was like probably 5 or 6 miles from camp. It was actually a lot closer to a different trailhead, where we found it. So if we had actually killed that one, we probably would have figured out, like, called Kara to come get us at a different trailhead or something. But anyway, so that night we found him, and Kara was actually planning on backpacking in and joining us the next day. And so I had messaged her a little bit about where camp was and how to get there and everything, and she had a long drive to get there. And but anyway, so I think we had glassed that billy, and it was getting dark, and we were on top of a peak that we had not been on before.
Okay.
And so the route we took there was pretty sketchy. And so
for you to say sketchy, most people would be like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah. It's a lot of navigating cliffs and just like, like not necessarily like rock climbing, but just like you got to kind of pick your route. You got to be careful not to, it's like kind of no fall zones. Like, it's not actual rock climbing. Like, we don't have ropes or anything, but not great routes. And so we had, it was right at sunset, and like we were planning on checking out a new route to get back to camp, to just like hopefully be a better route than what we had found on the way there. So brand new spot, but I was messaging Kara on the peak. John started heading down, and I just hear a yell, and I was like, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because we were going down an avalanche we hadn't been down before, and I just hear him yell. I was like, oh, crap. And so just like run down there, and he's just sitting on the ground. And what had happened is he was going as kind of a scree shoot, and like he was sliding. Sometimes you kind of slide down the scree with the rocks, and like he had caught his foot on a bigger rock underneath the scree. Okay. And it just like bent backwards when he was moving forward, and it just popped. Yeah. All he heard, he's like, I just heard a pop. I don't know. And so we weren't sure what happened. And at first he's like, I don't know if I can walk on this. And so it's getting dark. I mean, we got 20 minutes of light left. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, even if we need to like medevac, they're not showing up tonight.
Right.
They're not going to land here anyway, like in these cliffs. Like we're like in an avalanche chute. I'm like, we got to get somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that was what was rolling through my mind. And also it was a route that we didn't know. And so I just like, all right, well, just kind of stay put. I'm going to like go ahead and see if I can figure out a route while we still have like a little bit of light.
Yeah.
And luckily I did. I found some like goat trails that kind of got through there. It's still not good. It was no better than the route that we came in there on. Still sketchy. And I was kind of bouncing back and forth, and John kept trying to walk on it. So he had trekking poles and was just like able to like kind of walk. He's like, it's not good. It's like any twisting, any like weird thing, it's just like excruciating pain.
Yeah.
And so he was like trying to navigate these cliffs, like not great, but he did it. And like, I just felt, I was trying to stay calm because it's just like panicking in those situations doesn't do any good. And so he wasn't doing that well though. And then this like trying to navigate through there, and I grabbed most of his gear and threw that on my pack, and then just like we got through there slowly. Wow. It was not great, but he just had to go super slow to not like twist or like put any weird pressure on it. And got to a saddle above where we could see camp, or well, theoretically it was pitch black by now. And so I was like, all right, well, we're at least at the saddle. Like we can get a helicopter here, we get horses here, we could get something here probably. And so, but he's just like, no, I think I can go. I was like, as long as we go straight. And so like, we're just like this super slow trekking pole is just like going downhill. And eventually got back to camp. It took us forever. And meanwhile, my dad was at camp. Like he had hiked up with us earlier in the day, and he made it to the top of a different peak. And so he was stoked, like being on top of the mountain range. Like it was awesome, great time. We got a photo on top of the peak, and my dad's like, "This is probably the last time I'm gonna be on top of this mountain."
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like that was cool. But anyway, he had already gone back to camp, and then so he sees us coming out, and I'm like, in his mind, he's like, "Oh, they definitely killed a goat." Like sees these headlamps coming down like super slow, like, "Oh, I bet they're loaded down with the goat."
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no. So when we got back, like, well, not good news. And so, and then I was trying to we were trying to figure out. I was basically just going through different options in my head, but the fact that he had made it to camp was pretty impressive because I was from where he had broke it. It was 2 miles back to camp, but I mean, and then part of that was that sketchy terrain, so not an easy task to get there.
Yeah. And
then Kara had backpacked in the dark and was at camp, and so that was unfortunate news to give her too. And then so we were coming up with plans to potentially get someone who had horses come in or whatever, but next morning John's like, yeah, no, we'll try to hike out. And so we just loaded up the llamas. Kara carried his gun out, and we just very slowly waddled out of there. But it was a bummer, obviously, because you have this mountain goat tag, and it's just like you're looking forward to the entire season of being in the high country chasing that. And at the time we had no idea what had happened, right? So we didn't know it. But then when he got back, went to the doctor, ended up breaking his fibula, which that was how he was able to walk, as the fibula is not a weight-bearing bone.
Okay.
But it broke, and it was bad enough that they had to do surgery. And so next week he's in surgery. They have to, I forget exactly what hardware he got put in him, but he got some hardware put in, got the surgery, and then on crutches for a while, in a boot for a while. This kind of a long wait before you're allowed to even walk again. Yeah. And then with, what was it? I think there's 2 weeks of this. Luckily in Montana, our seasons are long.
Right. Goes to the end of November.
Yeah. So end of the season, he's able to walk. He tested it out. He did go up and just like some short hikes on our parents' place and killed a whitetail buck, so that was good. And so was able to do that at least. But then so it was like that went okay, like wasn't great, but it was it was amazing how fast he was progressing. Like just
Really?
like every day I was getting better, it seemed like. And so he's like, yeah, we're going to go goat hunting for this last week. So with the last or second to last weekend we went out, and that's the other thing is like he has full-time job and like can't just,
Right.
take like kind of used up all his vacation time on that first
Yeah.
goat hunt. And it's a busy time of the year for him. So they can't just like bail, right during Thanksgiving. And so
Oh man.
anyway, he got that weekend, and then he had 4 days. So he had 6 days total that we could go out at the very end of the season.
Okay.
And I was astonished how well he could get around.
Really?
So then again, like everything was rekindled. Like we're gonna kill a goat. This is gonna be epic. Like I had been scouting. I had found one good billy, but I was struggling to just like find billies that were at least killable.
Right.
And even for completely able-bodied people, like
Right.
they were just, I couldn't find them.
Yeah.
Like it just like, and because we had seen a number earlier in the season, but the rut was going, so they had moving around.
Yep.
But then at the same time, it's like, well, if I find the nannies, I should be able to find some billies.
Right.
But I kept finding lone nannies or groups of like just 2-3 nannies with kids,
Huh.
really tiny billies.
Yeah.
And just like, it was a struggle. I found some that were just like, in hindsight, maybe we should have tried to kill them, but it was like super far in, would have been a bunch of post holing through crusty snow and like.
Not for the guy who just got.
Well, that's what I
got out of
thought.
the cab,
but then like every day we just kept pushing. It probably wasn't good for him. But like, every day we just kept pushing it further and further and harder. And like we hiked to the top of the mountain range on several occasions again, just like, and through post holing through snow. And like,
I just think of the atrophy that would happen in that
Oh, yeah.
recovery period, and then you just jump into a goat hunt right away.
oh, this is insane. Yeah. And like, he was just determined though.
Yeah.
He wanted to kill one. And like, I mean, we left everything on there. Like we skipped Thanksgiving. We didn't do anything for Thanksgiving. We just like hunted straight through, hunted every single day. Wow. And we ended last light on top of the mountain range, like till dark, and had to hike out in the dark. And like, it almost ended in the most epic fashion.
Yeah.
It was so like, we cut a billy track with 4 hours of light left on the last day of the season, and Billy was like going up through the trees, and then like we got out on this open face, and like we were just paralleling these tracks. I'm like, we're gonna kill this thing.
Yeah.
And like, I was just like so excited, and just I don't know. I just thought it was gonna come together, but unfortunately, he was just too far ahead of us, and we never caught up with him.
Wow.
But it was weird. Those billies, they moved. Like, because even that spot earlier in the season, like in the summer and stuff, they were all over in that area. And usually, and like I seasonally they move, but normally this time of year there's a lot of there's definitely a lot of nannies and kids in this area. I mean, like there'll be a group of 30 sometimes.
Wow.
And like why they weren't there? Because even like we were up top and I could glass everything, couldn't find them. Wow. No idea where they went.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was unfortunate. But it was, I mean, like it was still an amazing experience, and to see him like come back from that injury and just like leave everything
That's impressive.
out in the field, like I gave it his all. So but yeah, so that was we spent a lot of time on that one, and I scouted, some days too when he wasn't able to get out, and it was fun to be in mountain goat country for sure, but just so that was like occupied my headspace for a lot of the season anyway.
I kind of I use that when people ask me how the season went. I said, well, we had a glory tag hunt this season of a mountain goat, and the guest hunter broke his leg. And people are like, what? How'd you get him out of there? I'm like, I have no idea how he got out of there. Other than he's one tough SOB. But that's just how some seasons go, or some hunts and some tags go. And I think there's a lot about what you just said there. So some people wait, whether it's a deer or an elk or something, they just save their points forever until they know, all right, this is the unit I got this year because I burned 28 points.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's always that hiccup that can happen. You know, like I think about when I had the Arizona strip tag in 2007. I was so excited. Hit it in the worst drought year for a decade.
Yeah.
And so here's a glory tag that's still in my drawer. And John's got a goat tag that's sitting on his desk unpunched. And so there's always risks associated with these glory tags, if you want to call it that. I mean, I would have never anticipated that as the risk, a broken leg, but
no, I gotta say, I mean, like, I don't know, like, well, since working for you, I've definitely changed my tune on, like, yeah, like you say, a glory tag for just the reasons that you're stating. Like, you just never know what's going to happen. Like, is it a bad year? Like, you might wait your entire lifetime to have this better experience, and then whatever. Like the Kaibab, like deer.
Yeah.
That was like
full moon, 75 degrees every day.
Same thing. It's just like, and you know, like, well, it's like that season, multiple 200-inch deer got killed.
Yeah.
But you know, however many tags they give out, only so many 200-inch deer are going to get killed regardless if it's the best deer in the world. Yeah. So you do, like, everyone gets these ideas of like all these amazing tags and an injury, you know, this like some other emergency, family problems.
Event,
and it's just like you wait your entire lifetime. It's like you're really putting a lot of your eggs in one basket if you're waiting an entire lifetime to draw this tag, and then it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people are like, well, what tag are you looking forward to next year? Whatever one I get.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an easy to draw one. I mean, that's just how that goes. But I just can't believe John was able to get off that mountain the way he did without help.
Oh yeah.
Without a horse or something. And then, you know, anyone who's been laid up with an injury, like when I messed up my arm almost 3 years ago now, I couldn't use my arm for better part of 2 months. The atrophy, I felt like I was back in third grade or something.
Yeah.
And the number of months it took just to get that built back up. And that's an arm. That's not a leg that's carrying a lot of weight up the spine of some mountain range.
No, it's crazy. Yeah, with my knee, I mean, I'm 9 months after the injury, and I'm still not back to just like the muscles starting to look similar, but the strength isn't there. Like I still can't, you know.
Yeah, I think another thing that is in that is, you know, John runs these mountain runs, and he's in fantastic shape.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But then you think about, and this gets to the point of how things can happen in the mountains, maybe a little quicker or surprisingly where it wouldn't happen if you weren't doing what he's doing. You're carrying a pack with a bunch of weight.
Yep.
And that weight adds a lot more forces to any little tweak, any little twist. It makes you less nimble. You're not going to be able to just jump up and pull your foot out of a position.
Yeah.
Those are things that I think about and why I go so slow some days in the mountain.
It definitely makes you think. Yeah, I feel like because often I'll get too comfortable in, you know, sketchy places, like just kind of complacent. But yeah, it makes you realize how quickly something can change, like one slip, whatever. And and like you said, you got all that extra weight on your back, like, or if it's icy, you could, like, I've had moments too sliding, like on just like where you wouldn't expect it. I'm like kind of walking, there's some grass, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's this dirt, and it was this like frozen dirt, and then like it's just enough, like just steep enough that you start sliding, and like this is not good. And that particular night too, I'd killed a bull, an elk, and like I had cell service, and so I was lucky enough to, I was asked if people wanted to help pack it out, and like 3 people responded that I will. And I'm like, whoa, okay, well then I'm not going to pack I was planning on packing a quarter out that night, but I'm like, if 3 people are going to come in, well, I'll pack out together. It'll be great. We'll have 4 loads. And so like, I'm confident that if I had an elk quarter on my back that night, that it would have ended very badly.
Yeah.
Because I barely stopped myself with no weight.
Really?
And like if I had an out quarter on my back, it would have just like I would have been going over cliffs, like for
Really?
sure. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, so that this is like little things like that make you realize like how little of a difference like something could have changed, and like that was not good. That was not a good position to be in. And like I even had micro spikes in my pack, but I just didn't have them on.
Right.
And so like this is like little, this is like little things. That's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I had my goat tag in 21, we're all moving across this snowy face up above some cliffs, and there's enough grass underneath there. The snow is melting and then freezing, melting and freezing, and it's pretty sketchy. But it's like, there's no big deal. There's grass and there's some small trees here. No big deal. I take a step, and the next thing I know, I'm going downhill like I'm a toboggan.
mm-hmm.
Because I have, 25 pounds of a pack and a rifle and everything else. And on my way by, I grab a hold of a tree.
Yeah.
And I look up, and Jonathan and Dale and Adam Foss was with us.
Oh yeah.
And they're looking at me like, whew. So I scramble back up to them. Adam drops his pack, and he's got 2 pairs of micro spikes in there. He's like, here, one for you, one for me. And I'm sure Dale and Jonathan were like, well, what about us? But
Yeah, worthwhile investment for
yeah.
all the I started to use them a bunch at the end of this season on the goat hunt, and like they're definitely nice, but they can also be a hindrance too if you get in the wrong snow conditions. So
really?
something to be careful about there too. Just like when ice builds up on them, if the snow is kind of wetter.
Right.
And then you start building up, or like we were crossing creeks and getting snow built up on them, and I was like, oh, this is not good either.
Yeah.
But they can be lifesavers at times.
Well, I mean, there's that hunt. I went back to the Yukon where you and I went. What was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago. I can't remember what it was. And we both shot great caribou within 3 days. We'd filled 2 caribou tags. And so Bruce Pettit from Leupold, he it was so funny. After we got back from that hunt, and I sent him pictures, he's like, you make this look like so much fun. Let's go do it. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking that I'm just going to tag along with him on a hunt. So he goes to Dustin's booth, Dustin Rowe, who owns BC Backcountry and Beyond and Cedar Lake Outfitters. We're at the sheep show in Reno, and Bruce walks over. Hey, Dustin, what do you got available? Randy he's talked me, and I got to go do this mountain caribou thing. And Dustin's like, well, this is all I have available. And, I got this one later hunt in 2025. Bruce is like, we'll take it. And I heard Bruce say that. So after we walked away, I'm like, Bruce, what's this we stuff? He's like, me and you. I'm like, well, I'm saying it how I think I said it, and I was telling Bruce this story. He's like, I didn't tell you that. I'm like, I think you did. But anyhow, when I told him, I said, well, I don't have that in my budget. He said something to the effect of, well, you better go find some budget then. So we went up there. We were there, I think, about a week earlier than when you and I went.
Okay.
But still, it's like there were so many caribou when you and I went, and I'm telling Bruce all the time, oh, wow, no way are we going to do this or do that. We're going to wait. We got this many days. And when we're heading out the door to drive way up to where the camp, you get to the trailhead and then ride the Argos. It's a long drive. It's almost 5 hours in a truck on old mining roads, and then at least a 2-hour Argo ride up to the camp. So we're heading out the door, and I'm like, "Where's Dustin?" He'll be right back. He ran down to what they'd call the game and fish office. He comes back, and he's got 2 grizzly bear tags, and he's got them in our name. I'm like, Dustin, I didn't sign up for a grizzly bear hunt. He's like, yeah, I know, but the caribou aren't as abundant as they were. So I think in his head, he's thinking, man, these guys came up for a migration caribou hunt.
Yeah.
and they're not going to see any caribou. So I better figure out some way to make life easier or more entertaining for him. So we go do that. And had I known that he was going to hand me a grizzly tag, I wouldn't have brought a 308.
Oh yeah.
I would have brought a 300 weight mag, but I didn't know. So, unfortunately, it was for the Yukon at that time of year. Anyhow, it was really, really warm, and some days it was so foggy, couldn't see it. Like the first day on our hunt, when you guys, we went and did that stalk on the bull you eventually killed, it fogged in, and we're walking around the mountain, and they're probably doing circles around us.
Yeah. Well, that kind of rolls back to, I mean, that's like the same thing when you talk about the glory tags, or, in this case, if it's a hunt you've saved up for your entire lifetime.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, there's stuff that's outside of the outfitter's control that it's like,
Right.
you could just, I've heard of hunts where they're just fogged in the entire time.
Yeah.
And you literally can't glass at all. And
Right.
it's just like, that's the way it goes. It's just.
Yeah. So it was one of those kind of hunts where we did have a lot of times we were fogged in, but a migration hunt with such warm weather and no migration, that turns into a ptarmigan hunt. And fortunately, the two guides, Zach and Tebow, are as fanatic about bird hunting, grouse hunting as I am. And so the first day we get up, and you can't see one. You get out of your wall tent, you can't see the other wall tent in camp. It is so fogged in. And so the guys were talking about how many ptarmigan there were up above camp. I'm like, wow, let's go ptarmigan hunting and heck with it. So we did. And that's another side story about we posted some clips of me ground pounding. That's what we call it.
Yeah, shoot them on the ground, yeah.
I mean, these birds have never seen a human, so you'd have to walk up and kick them almost to get them to flush. Holy cow, have I gotten lit up.
Oh, really?
Oh, man, because I shoot upland birds on the ground. And some people went so far as to email me, send me, Michael has forwarded me some, what do they call them, DMs or whatever on Instagram? Because I don't know how to do it, but... I've been called every name you can think of by these guys who are serious upland bird hunters. And I get it. If I had dogs around, I'm not shooting a bird on the ground if there's dogs with me.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Because that's the only logic that makes sense in my mind.
Oh, no. The logic they'll use is ethical. This is the most unethical. Some have called it disrespectful. Some have called it vulgar, immature. I mean, you name it.
I mean, I think you could have a pretty solid debate about it be more ethical.
Yeah.
So the chances of you winging and wounding a bird, like, you think that bird cares about how it dies?
No, it doesn't. Right. And so, me when I shoot grouse, right? I shoot their heads off if at all possible. And a lot of times I'm getting as close as I can, and they fly off before I get close enough, because I want to. And this is how I was brought up. If you grew up in Koochiching County, Minnesota, like I was, with a family where those are just chickens, that you need to get those in the pot. And you better not mess up the breasts, and you better not mess up the legs. So there's none of this flush them, and, when you flush a bird and it's flying away from you, you're running those BBs up the backside, through the breast, through the legs. You can't pluck their heads off when you're wing shooting.
Yeah, no, that's what's kind of comical about it is it's like, if you were to explain, like, outside of like hunters who have grown up with these cultural norms and whatever the ideas behind bird hunting, I feel like if you were just explaining it to someone where the whole idea was novel,
right?
Like, you flush them, you give them the option of what you're talking about, shooting them in the head, and this like quick death. Like, don't ruin any meat.
Right.
We're here to eat these things. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh no, we got to scare them first so that they're in the air to make it more sporting. Like, wow, that's kind of messed up. Like, what's wrong? You got some mental problems, bud. Like, it's not like you see a deer and you're like, all right, run, deer, run, and then start shooting at it. Like, the logic kind of falls apart if you like take an outside perspective view. It's like, why do you feel the
Right.
need to spook it? Like
Yeah.
with the dogs and stuff like that makes sense.
I
Obviously,
get
you don't
it,
want to
yeah.
shoot your dog.
Right.
And the one I can get a little more behind because I've done it enough. Like if you like shooting like a wounded duck on the water or
Right.
something, for whatever reason, it is harder to kill them on
It
the
is.
water a lot of times.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
they just their wings are folded up and like
Right. And
part of their body's underwater. But yeah, other than that, it's just, I don't know.
and a lot of times I shoot over their heads trying to pluck their heads off.
Oh yeah,
And so I end up missing a few.
yeah,
But this gets into this whole idea of what is ethics and what's personal preference. So often people use the term ethical or unethical to build a structure of moral superiority of their personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have hunted behind some great dogs, right? Wade's dogs.
Oh yeah.
It's so fun to watch a well-trained dog do its thing.
For
so
sure.
I fully get what these guys, why they're passionate about what they do. But one of the guys, I emailed them back. I'm like, so I shoot anywhere from 6 to 12 grouse a year. Shoot them in the head, and that's just from when I grew up. If you had pellets in the breast, you were going to get a tongue lashing. And to this day, Kim, my wife, if I bring home grouse and it's kind of shot up, she's like, what the hell's with this? There's feathers and holes and guts and, why'd you do that? So people think I'm making this up about why I shoot them on the ground or on the stump. That is why I do it. So I responded to the one guy. I'm like, so in Montana, if I go out to central or eastern Montana, I will see trucks with trailers of dogs parked there all season, hunting every day, pounding the hell out of every bird that's out there with 4 or 5 dogs and a half dozen guys. So what's more quote unquote ethical? if you want to start throwing that term around as loosely as you are, me going shooting 6, 8, 10, 12 grouse in the head that I'm going to eat, or guys who are out there for 30, 40 days a season shooting triple digit birds
Yeah.
to quote unquote get their dogs some work.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Well,
I
I
love
don't think
to see a dog work.
I was gonna say, and I don't think either one's inherently wrong. I mean,
No,
I
they're
think the state agencies do a fine job in like
Yep.
in terms of like regulating bird harvest, but that's the thing you have to roll back to with upland birds is like they kind of regulate themselves because it's the vast majority of their populations based on precipitation and habitat and whatever's
Nesting
going on
cover.
with the weather.
Yeah.
And so it's just like us shooting them really doesn't matter in terms of the population.
Right.
If you were out there like market hunting and shooting 100 a day, sure. But
Right.
yeah, individual sportsmen, it's like, so it's all the stuff we're arguing about is this like our own personal ethics,
Right.
our own like
Personal
cultural,
preference.
these cultural things that we've come up with for fun that just don't.
Yeah, they have nothing to ethics. If you really get into the definition of ethics, it is a universally adopted standard of behavior. Well, shooting grouse on the ground is a very common thing across the U.S. and Canada. And so to say that shooting grouse or ptarmigan on the ground is unethical because no one does it, it's not a standard or a norm, is complete BS. Now, when you get into preferences, it usually is equated with your own morality. That's internal. Ethics are mostly external. And so I've ended up in this long debate, email exchanges with some of these guys about, call it what you want. But if I put together a reel of me pounding grouse in the head, you're going to probably go into orbit then. Because if I wanted to, I could put together a reel between archery and shotgun of dozens of grouse getting shot.
Yeah.
And cooked. So anyhow.
Well, I just to cap that one off, I don't think the idea of ethics and like in terms of hunting animals has been a bad thing. I think
Right.
largely it's been
Hmm?
a good thing that
Oh,
we've
for sure.
adopted things like the fair chase, like the
Hmm?
ideas of fair chase and
Right.
like, cause yeah, I mean, if we were just to go out and I don't know, like what, yeah, trap deer and elk
Yeah.
and something like that. Like, yeah, no, I get it. So
Yeah.
it's just each scenario is different. And, that
Yeah.
one just like is one that I think is
Yeah.
kind of gone off the rails a little bit in my opinion, but
Yeah.
everyone's got their own
Oh yeah.
thing.
And then
That's a luxury of having excess time on our hands to even think about stuff such
yeah.
as ethics. It's not the coyote and the fox when they're killing an upland bird. They're not thinking about,
No.
is this bird suffering? They're just like, I'm
Yeah.
hungry. So
So it was just an interesting thing that I did not expect that, because so many of the people who follow us know my passion for birds, and so the things about my supposed ineptitudes and my lack of moral character is like, wow. Okay, whatever. But so anyhow, to continue on this hunt, we were fogged in a lot of days, but we did see a lot of grizzly tracks. Lots of grizzly tracks. Had a small skiff of snow, and then it'd melt, and then it'd snow a half inch, just enough to dust things, but enough to reveal a lot of grizzly tracks. And we were seeing a few caribou, but in the course of that 10-day hunt, you and I saw more caribou the first day
really,
than what we saw in 10 days.
dang.
Yeah. And we saw this one caribou. It was a really nice bull. It was the only really nice bull that we saw. It was on the same mountain where you killed yours. And then it fogged in. So we're like, well, like, tomorrow. Well, the next day, it was so foggy you couldn't see anything. And that continued. And then we got a glimpse of him again a couple days later. But I think it was right at dark. And so we couldn't go after him. Fogged in. Well, finally, one morning, from our camp, you glass way over there and you see this herd of caribou in the same spot. It's like, let's get closer. And it's him. And we get a really good look at him now. And Bruce is like, that looks like a big one. I'm like, looks like a big one to me. I wonder what these guys think. And so Zach and Tebow are like, oh, yeah, let's go get him. Well, that's a grunt to get to the top of that mountain. You've done it.
Yeah.
And so off they go. Cause my Argo broke an axle. we're as quick as we split up. The idea was we were going to go glass from a different angle and give them hand signals or whatever if they came around that face where you shot yours.
Yep.
Well, we didn't get very far at all, and we broke an axle on the Argo. So we didn't. Tebow's texting Zach, the other guy, you got any spare parts in your Argo? So he hikes up to where they park their Argo, and we're doing this. We spent all day working on our Argo. They go up there, Bruce shoots the bull, and they come down. I see headlights coming off the mountain, or headlamps. So I built a big fire, because I'm like, when they get here, they're going to be tired. It's dark now.
Yeah.
And so finally about 11 o'clock, at night, Zach, the other guide, whoever owns Argo, you guys need to hire Zach as your mechanic, your engineer, your something. He carried a grinder up there, a DeWalt, like a
Battery powered grinder. Yeah.
And he used that grinder to cut the tracks off our Argo. He's like, we're just going with wheels. These tracks create too much friction without snow and blah, blah, blah. And so that's how we limped back to camp.
Jeez.
But Bruce had his bull. And that was the only bull we saw that was even remotely close. The last evening, I did a stalk on this grizzly bear. We'd seen him twice. And Tebow, my guide, we agreed. With the 308, we're not shooting unless this is a perfect shot.
Yeah.
Close range. Because where he was at is right where all those, you got to plow through all those thick willows.
Right.
Like you got about a 500-foot elevation band of thick willows. Well, he's on a little bench where there aren't any willows, but around him it's just solid willows.
Yeah, and chasing a wounded grizzly into a willow patch does not
In the
sound
dark,
like a
yeah.
fun idea.
So anyhow, if people see the footage, they'll see that we got to a spot where it would have been about 110-yard shot, and just as we peek over, the bear knows something's up because we had to cross this scree slope to get around to where he was, and I think he heard us. And as we pop up, he starts walking off, and I'm not going to drop down and take a shot at a walking grizzly bear. This is the biggest grizzly bear of all the grizzlies I've seen in Montana. I've never seen one like this guy.
Dang.
He doesn't even have a neck. He looks like that. What's that Star Wars big fat ugly thing? Jabba the Hutt or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like. He drops down through some willows, comes up the other side, and he stops at 215 yards. He's quartering away. And I'm laying down. I'm like, well, I set my limit at 200. But in the lower left portion of my scope, I see something blurry. It kind of caught my eye.
Yeah.
And so I pull my head up and I look, and there's a bush right in front of me.
Oh.
Because he'd walked to our left. And so as I'm moving my position.
Yep.
So I get up and I move to clear the bush. And now he kind of takes off, and then he stops at 250. And now I got the bush. Because now he's moved even further. Now I got another bush in front of me. So I ended up not shooting. And I'm fully comfortable with that. You go to a wild place like that, and I know some people might think this is weird, but walking off the mountain that night as the sun was setting, I knew it was the end of the hunt. I felt so at ease with how the hunt had unfolded, and in my head, I'm thinking, you know what? I am so glad there are wild places where great big old grizzly bears are going to die of old age, like here.
Yeah.
And good for him. I didn't need to kill him. Don't get me wrong. If I would have had that shot at 110 yards, I was going to shoot, and I'm sure it would have killed him. But it wasn't like that determined if this hunt was or wasn't a success.
Yeah.
I just had a blast. I got to shoot my first ptarmigan, shot a bunch of them. And then on the way out, I shot 9 spruce grouse.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. The limit up there is 10
Dang.
a day, 30 in possession or something like that. I was like, wow. So anyhow, that again, that gets to one of these things of, you go there, and these are expensive hunts.
Yeah.
You know, I'm at the point in my life now where I'll allocate some money to do these hunts. When I was younger, there's no way I would have. And if someone's really pinching pennies to go do one of these hunts, I'd feel terrible for them if they showed up and it was all fogged in, or there's no migration, or whatever it is that I bet you got a 20-25% chance that you're going to end up on one of these hunts where it just doesn't go well.
Right. No, yeah, you never know. But at the same time, like, just think of all the stories you still have, even though you didn't bring anything home besides, I guess you got some birds. But then, like, in terms of what you went there to do, it can be tough to swallow, but it's still like, I don't know. Pulling the trigger and killing the animal is still just a small part of the journey. I mean, that's not, in my mind, if it was that, like, well, let's just go to a high fence Texas ranch, and they probably got a caribou down there somewhere. We'll just go blast something down if it's just about killing. So it's like the killing, obviously, it's going to be our ultimate goal as hunters, but you still got to go experience those mountains. Probably saw the northern lights, saw this grizzly bear, and Bruce got one too. So that's,
we checked pretty much every box you could ask for. And, people, since they've seen me hunting Northwest Canada a few times now, they're like, well, why don't you just go to Alaska? And Alaska's amazing. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But I try to give people some perspective. If you took the Yukon and the Northwest Territories, the 2 places in Canada I've been hunting, they're 25% larger landmass than Alaska. Alaska's got 750,000 residents. Those 2 provinces combined have less than 100,000 residents. So if you're looking for the desolate places of North America,
Yeah.
Northwest Canada is going to be way more desolate than Alaska. You don't hear bush planes flying nonstop. The Alaska residents, they get after it. I mean, they have boats, they have ATVs, airplanes. Those 750,000 Alaskans are hardcore when it comes to getting in the backcountry.
Oh, for sure.
So the wildest places of Alaska seem way more busy than the wildest places of the Northwest Territories or the Yukon.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so I go there for that experience because it reminds me, and I was telling Jace this as we're sitting there on the mountain, just looking at this vast country that, man, if I got turned around and started walking the wrong direction, it's like 600 miles to the Beaufort Sea, and it's probably froze over right now. And I'm not going to find a road.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, that's like, and you think comparing that to the lower 48, like,
Right.
because that's always, I when people get lost in the lower 48, I'm like, walk in a direction.
Yeah.
There's very few places where if you aren't going to go 10, 15 miles and not hit a road.
Yep.
There's a few, but 30 miles, you're hitting a road.
Yeah. And so I was trying to explain to Jace how good it is for me mentally to go to places like the Yukon, like the Northwest Territories, and realize what wild really is. It's a complete reset of the definition of wild. And that's what the lower 48 was at one time, 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's not today. And so it really, I'm kind of this pragmatic, let's compromise, let's get the conflict behind us, let's figure this out. But when I come back from places like northern Canada, where it is still truly wild, my pragmatic compromise personality is gone when it comes to wild country.
Yeah.
I'm done compromising. Because if you think about that, if you start compromising wild country, you never get the part that you compromise on never gets back to wild. You
Yeah, you're not
that's
adding.
forever.
Yeah, like,
You can't say, well, we'll give you this, but we're going to we're going to add to balance the ledger. We get this. Well, we get this part already has houses and roads and
I was
human
going to say, have you
development.
ever seen a housing development go back into native habitat?
Never.
No.
So I know people are going to think I've turned into some sort of whatever term you'd want to hang on me now. But after 4 trips to the northern reaches of Canada, my interest in compromising on anything that dilutes, or pollutes the wildness of what little we have left in the lower 48
Yeah.
is out the window. I'm no longer compromising. And I don't mean like before I was like in favor of dealing everything away. But if you have a pragmatic personality like I do, you just try to find solutions that are as close to a win for everybody. No more. Not with wild country. It's off the table for me.
Gotcha. I mean, it's crazy to put it in context like that this week, because the handful of times I've been lucky enough to go follow you up into that country, when you fly over something for 150 miles
Yeah.
and don't see any sign of human presence, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we do have, like, in my, what I considered wild before that is it just totally got thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's not to say that stuff we have in Montana and Wyoming and wherever isn't wild per se, but it's just
Right.
like, it's just a totally different level up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I mean, if you were going to hit the rescue me button on your inReach in parts of the Yukon or the Northwest Territories,
Good luck. No one, or
yeah, no one's coming.
yeah.
You might have told the world where you're dying, but it's not like here in the lower 48. Someone's going to be there quickly,
Yeah.
that day. And so it is so good for me and my mindset and just my perspective to go to places like that. And people think that that's some sort of diss on Alaska, and it's not at all, because Alaska is so cool and has such amazing country. But it just is part of what really recharges my batteries in a big way.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing. We come out of camp, and there's two guys who are going in on the last of the last hunt, which normally is a snowmobile hunt, because usually there's so much snow by then. Well,
Gotcha.
they had a hunt like we had.
Oh, really?
On day 2 and day 3, they both shot 400-inch caribou.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Zach.
In the same spot?
Same spot.
So
same camp.
They just moved in right after you guys left.
Yeah. Zach texts Jay.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, he texts Jace. He's like, man, if you guys could have stayed 2 more days, they came rolling through, and there were caribou on every mountain. You know what?
Dang.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's been one of those kind of seasons, and I had a deer tag that I thought was going to be just slam dunk deer tag. I'd hunted there earlier, and 3 times I've had the earlier season deer tag, and I've seen it or shot nice bucks. And so this season is later. It's late November, or at least into the middle part of November. I'm like, yeah, and we're going to go here. We're going to tell this cool story about all these little chunks of BLM that the locals use to get up to the higher country. And we're going to tell the story about how Mike Lee would have had all those sold. If it was up to the Mike Lee, if the world hadn't stood up and pushed back on him and his group of cronies last summer, I wanted to show these are the kind of parcels we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to show you how many people are at trailheads, how many people are out in the woods just like I am, enjoying this stuff. And so that's the story I was there to tell. And I was sure, like, man, I'm going to shoot a great buck, and it's just going to be such a wonderful thing. Well, I'm sitting there working on my farmer's stand. It's 70 degrees. It's like, this is not what I bargained for. So I could have went up higher. And I'm sure, because we saw hundreds of does, and we never saw any mature bucks. And you know me, it's like, I don't care if he's a 190-inch buck or a 150-inch buck. If he's 4.5 years old, that's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And never saw one that I thought was 4.5 years old. And everyone's like, well, you got to go higher. You got to go higher. I'm like, yeah, but if I go up to those big chunks of land, I can't tell the story about this is what Mike Lee wanted to sell. So I stayed there and plodded along, trying to tell the story about this is why we fight for these lands. This is why even these 300-acre, 800-acre, whatever is considered a small parcel under their definitions, they're super important. They might be that little pocket where somebody goes and shoots their deer every year, or shoots their elk every year.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can think of a lot of places, and
yeah, or it's the place that gets you access to the 20,000 acres. And why do they want to sell these little ribbons of public that get you to that 20,000 acres? Because then someone's going to control access to that 20,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is. So,
and it's another way to chisel away and like devalue those bigger parcels, like you were saying. And then if people don't care about them, or if they're managed so poorly that people get frustrated, then that's how they get what they want too, of either selling, transferring, whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's this different tactics to chisel away at public land and access.
Again, left that hunt, that tag's still in my pocket. But I left there feeling we told a really good story about the importance of these places. And I'm working on the final edit right now of the day-by-day stuff, because we do the day-by-day and then we do the kind of the day-by-day is pretty raw, right? It's just like, here's what happened. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 day-by-day episodes out of that. And then the Fresh Tracks version is a long dissertation about this whole public land issue because half of our audience likes the more polished storyline.
Yeah.
And the other half that they just want to show me what happened. I don't need all this storyline BS. I don't need music and editing. And so we produce both of them. On the longer version, the more storyline version, David sent me. David's our editor who's working on this. He's like, this is 15 minutes of you standing on your pulpit. How much of this are you going to cut out? So I got to work on that. 'Cause I was pretty wound up. I didn't realize how wound up I was. I think it was a whole year of frustrations and stuff of going back to DC and just this whole season. You know, September I had to cut so I never have to, right? I can always say no. But you and I had to reschedule one of my elk hunts because I was supposed to go do a congressional hearing.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of hunting, who holds a congressional hearing in the middle of hunting season? But everyone's like, you got to be there. And then at the last minute, I'm like, hey, Marcus, guess what? We didn't have to reschedule that because they canceled my part of it. Then later in September, I had to rejuggle another part of the season because I had to go do a big conference that I was really happy to do this because there's these attacks on conservation easements.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a gathering of legislators, county commissioners, and other stuff who've been given a lot of false information about conservation easements. And those are the tool that, there's no more powerful tool when it works than letting a private landowner enter into craft their own conservation easement. They get to do it how they want, what works for them, but it's going to leave that land conserved in perpetuity. So I had to go to this conference, which was kind of hostile. I mean, I don't mean I felt threatened or anyway, but in terms of the points of view, I was surprised I was asked to be on the panel.
Really?
And so that was a 2-day thing in the middle of my hunting season. And so
well, it's impressive that you're able to dedicate that time. I think we definitely owe you a thank you for that because I tend to block it out, and which I need to work on because it's just like sometimes. Don't. Well, I don't know. You bounce back and forth. I think that it's probably good to have a balance of because I've seen some people go down a rabbit hole that they're so passionate about whatever. It might be a conservation issue, a wildlife issue, whatever, that it becomes their entire life.
Right.
And then it's so hard to deal with the politics and not when people don't agree with you, that when you don't get your way at this, like almost, I don't know. I've watched people become depressed over it, which is understandable because it is so frustrating at times. Yeah. But at the same time, so I guess in my mind, it's like, well, I want to go out and enjoy these things that in theory we're fighting for. Right. But at the same time, you should probably dedicate more time to fighting for these things. But I think there is a burnout that can happen that, I don't know where that balance lies, and it's different for everybody. But I think it can happen where if you get so stuck on your viewpoint, and I'm not trying to counter your previous thought on like no more compromise, I guess, because that's like the hard. I don't know. I've watched people when they are unwilling to compromise, and then they never get their way, and it's kind of sad to watch the spiral. Yeah. But it's like those are the most passionate people about the issue. But it's just like the nature of politics is you're never going to get 100% of what you want. And
for me, I'm in a unique spot where this is what I get to do now that I'm done with my world as a CPA. So I feel that the working person who doesn't get a lot of time to hunt, if they're counting on me to show up and do this, I'm willing to do it because I get to hunt a lot. And it's distracting mentally when I am out there. And you guys have seen me. People probably think I'm surfing Instagram when if there's ever clips of me on a phone when I'm out hunting. Trust me, I don't know how to do Instagram. So don't worry that that's what I'm doing. What I'm doing is probably engaging with politicians and elected officials and policymakers and some of the other people that we collaborate with to push back on this stuff. And I accept the fact that it's going to distract me while I'm out there.
Yeah.
It's going to force me to, like, this conservation easement thing. I'm happy to take 2 days and break up a hunt to go do this because it's that important. If we're going to screw landowners over and say we're taking away the most important tool you have to keep you from having to succumb to the pressures of development and everything else, I'm going to show up every day. If I got to cancel the season to go and fight for the right of landowners to be able to enter into conservation easements, I'll give up that season. It's that important. And I think our audience is counting on me and us, our platforms, to be there and be present for that. So, yeah, it with all the crazy crap going on, and that kind of gets to the second part of the title of this podcast, Broken Legs and Broken Promises. The broken promises are the promises that we have been given that, hey, we're not going to do any more of this crazy stuff. We're not going to this, or we passed the Great American Outdoor Act in 2020, and that's going to settle this once and for all. No, it hasn't. I mean, I got back. I got off the road 2 days ago, and you and I have finally got a chance to spend a lot of time in the last day and a half talking about the list of things in my notes that represent these broken promises from elected officials. And it's insane.
Yeah, it's a never-ending battle. Like you said, like the big win of, wow, we permanently funded Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, yeah, but actually we're going to defer that money to something that it wasn't intended for.
Right, yeah.
It never ends. It never ends.
Yesterday, I get an email from a U.S. senator saying, did you know that Mike Lee and his friends, this is what they're doing now? I'm like, what? And so it's his draft amendment that says, oh, this statement that Park Service lands have to stay as national parks and be managed as part of the national park unit. Mike Lee wants to get rid of that.
Which kind of, but when was it when they were talking about that in the past, right? Basically, like taking these national park lands on the fringes and utilizing them for housing developments or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
And I guess, and this one quick point on that too, of like, if somebody is a hunter is like, well, that shouldn't affect me. I can't hunt national parks anyway. It's like the amount of wildlife that utilize national parks and then leave the national park that you can then hunt is pretty significant. And so like, should care about national parks even from a purely selfish hunting, I get to hunt that animal perspective.
Right.
There's a lot of elk that spend a lot of time in national parks that leave those national parks.
So here we are today, this morning. It hit the wire that this is what Mike Lee is up to. And I say Mike Lee, but Mike Lee is just the punchable face, if you want to call it that. And I'm not advocating anyone go punch Mike Lee in the face. But he's this easy target, and he's happy to be this target.
Yeah.
But behind him, behind the scenes, there are a ton of people in this administration who've been put there by the advisors that Mike Lee is part of. Oh, put this person in there, put this person in there, put this person. And they're full on. Let's just, even if we lose the battle to give these public lands to our friends or sell them at a discount, let's change the regulatory framework. I call it the conservation infrastructure. So that, in effect, they get the resources for a discount or free. They get their way on this. They don't have to pay their way in terms of the liabilities and costs that they're imposing. That's what's going on right now. We are going to see a dismantling of the conservation infrastructure that gave us the hunting we have today. It is happening right now. And so what people are going to hear on this podcast, what they're going to see in our videos over the next however long, is pointing that out.
Mm-hmm.
And when we point those out, we kind of get the people who feel compelled to jump in and comment represent two groups. Well, that's what you voted for. People didn't vote for this. If you voted for the current administration, you didn't vote for, hey, I want to destroy the migration corridors of Wyoming. I want to go and wipe out the sage grouse leks. That's not what they voted for, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They voted for a huge list of things in their mind. They're prioritizing not just wildlife issues, but issues on taxes or whatever their social issues
and that's
are.
like this because, speaking personally, like, okay, if my number one issue is conservation and wildlife and habitat, that's a pretty small drop in the bucket compared to what most people's main issues are. And I always have to take a step back and like recognize that.
Right.
But yeah.
So you get some people who say, what's the thing, leopard eating your face. Well, what do you expect? Well, that does no good. That instantly takes this person who voted on a whole bunch of different issues, who we're hoping is going to stand up and speak against this stuff. And when you say this, well, that's what you voted for, what do you expect? You instantly have turned them off to the point where they're going to be like, yeah, F you.
Yeah.
If you can't see, I vote on a wider array of perspectives, and you want me to stand up and push back on this, I was willing to do it until you took this arrogant position and said, well, what do you expect? Because that's in effect saying, whatever my priority system, my value system is, that's what everybody else's should be. That's like so, it's so defeating to the idea of let's inspire people to stand up, regardless of how you voted.
Yeah, the division is so frustrating. It's
Yeah.
just like, if you would just have normal conversations with people and you don't watch a lot of the news,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, it turns out that people who have different political ideologies have a lot of common goals.
Yeah.
It turns out we have a lot in common that we agree on. Yet everything is framed as us versus them, and it's just like, it's crazy.
So you got one group that shows up on the comments of, well, that's what you get. What did you expect? And then you got the other people who are kind of apologists of, well, that's how it goes. I didn't want a bunch of, whether it's, you bring up whatever topic you want, they'll use some false comparison. Well, that's what the prior administration about. I wasn't. It's like, so you peel that away of the 10% on each side, or whatever the percent is, of people who feel compelled to jump in.
Yeah.
And try to rationalize what are irrational decisions being made. If you just factually look at them, like I showed you that survey yesterday that's going to get released next week.
Mm-hmm.
It surveyed Democrats, Republicans, independents about investing money in this conservation infrastructure, which is like the Land and Water Conservation Fund that has created more access than any program ever in America. It's solved more access problems than anything. The Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, the list goes on and on and on. 93% of Republicans surveyed support investing in this stuff and keeping the Land and Water Conservation Fund used for that and not diverted for other purposes.
Mm-hmm.
92% of Democrats supported that. 86% of independents supported that. So to your point, if you get rid of all the noise on the fringes, America wants conservation.
Yeah.
They want to solve access. They want to accommodate wildlife. But we let the fringe, and some people say they're not the fringe anymore. Okay, whatever you want to say, we let those people who do not reflect the values that show up in every survey on this stuff, have the levers of power.
Yeah.
And so if we let that happen, and it's incumbent on us to stand up and fight and push back on it and not give them a path of least resistance. If we don't do that, 10 years from now, what it's going to do to wildlife in the West is terrible.
Yeah.
And we already, if I look at my lifetime of where we are with mule deer herds, pronghorn herds, bighorn sheep herds, moose, other than elk, every one of them are at all-time lows in my lifetime. And so opportunity to hunt, whether you're resident or non-resident, are at all-time lows in my lifetime.
Damn.
And here it's just like, let's pile on with all these really bad proposals.
Right. And that's, I mean, I think the thing that I always have to bounce back to in this is nobody, all these politicians and whoever that might be making some of these decisions, sure, there might be some malicious actions here and there, but in their minds, they're not being malicious.
No.
Pretty much everybody has good intentions for whatever they're, you know, trying to do. And maybe their intentions are just making their rich friends more rich, but generally they don't think about what they're doing as being bad. And like, never underestimate how little some of these politicians know about the decisions that they're making, like in terms of like the impacts that it's going to have on wildlife, on people who like to hunt and who like to spend their time outdoors. Like, I think a lot of cases it's just like out of sight, out of mind. It's like, no, we're creating jobs, we're making XYZ, and it's like, yeah, like you are to some extent, but then when you start to factor in the whole story, like you were talking about, just how much of like the natural gas in Wyoming is actually, or not, I mean, not natural gas in Wyoming, but natural gas as a whole is exported.
Right.
And so it's just like, yeah, we can rally and be like, yeah, we want to have energy independence, but we produce way more than we're currently using. So like, what are those, is it worth that added profit to those companies to sacrifice
Wyoming
mule deer winter range?
Yeah.
And
or
it's just like
pronghorn migration.
And your opportunity to hunt mule deer for your lifetime, your kids' lifetime, their kids, like it's going to be impacted forever.
Right.
So some of these companies can have some extra profit right now. Is that worth? I mean, like, sure, like I can get behind energy to independence. I understand like that whole logic, but when you try to look at the whole picture and like realize what's at stake and what we're actually paying with, like the currency of wildlife and habitat, like I don't think people are thinking that way. Like just because we think that way because we're involved with hunting and we've been out on those landscapes, most people have never been out and so, you know, in the middle of Wyoming and seen some of these winter ranges and how impressive of a feat these deer, you know, traveling throughout the state and just growing massive racks too, which obviously as hunters we get excited about. So it's just like it's I think most people don't know, and so that's what I guess the goal, right, is to help people understand our perspective.
Yep. And that is by showing up and being present. Because if you roll back, let's look at the presidents. Let's take the last 4 administrations. President Obama was a Chicago urbanite. Do you think he had any real practical life experiences that reflect what we do?
Yeah.
The next president was President Trump. New Jersey real estate developer. Do you think he has any life experiences where he's going to prioritize our issues? Then we get President Biden, who's a lifetime politician from Connecticut. Do you think he has any life experiences that give him the perspectives that we would have? And now we have President Trump, again, a New Jersey real estate developer. So they have no individual personal life experiences that are going to give them any perspective about hunting and wildlife and the things that are important to us.
Yeah.
And now I know, as before I can give the The next part of this, I've already sent a lot of people into orbit by saying that. But let's use the export of natural gas. When President Obama's administration was in power in 2015, that's when they changed the rule that, the United States can now be an exporter of our energy because we've reached energy independence. And now, heck, let's build business models around exporting our energy. So a lot of people don't realize that prior to 2015, you couldn't export this. Well, a lot of people are like, whoa, wait a second. You know what that's going to do to our public lands? That's going to make them industrial complexes further than they already are to satisfy the energy demands of Asia and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that won't happen. Well, that's what's happening in Wyoming right now. And people want to say energy independent. No, if you took Wyoming's natural gas production off the market, it would not affect U.S. supply by 1 cubic foot of natural gas. If you look at how it's working, the U.S. is exporting so much natural gas to other countries. To your point of, there's companies now that have built profit models of exporting this natural gas. So not just Wyoming's production, but this little bit of production relative to the total production of natural gas in the U.S. that is going to happen in these critical migration corridors, critical winter ranges, critical sage-grouse leks. That is such a small portion of what, quote unquote, is needed for U.S. energy independence. It doesn't even come into the equation. Because until we stop exporting what we produce, none of this on the margins affects energy independence at all. It is all about the profits of companies who are in the energy export business, in this case, natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and not only that too, but then it's this like responsible development of like, okay, we are going to have more energy infrastructure. There's going to be more oil wells, gas wells, whatever.
Right.
But to just like throw out the window all of the work that's been done to say, okay, here are the spots that are like, they're too valuable.
Yep.
So like we can do it, but we're not going to do it right there. Like maybe you move it 20 miles over, whatever. And then to throw that out the window that people worked on for careers of like documenting and like finding all of these important spots to just like, no, we're just going to do it wherever is the cheapest.
Right.
Because we want to maximize profits.
Exactly.
And that's like,
and so I use that as an example it's going to happen in the next year, and you're going to hear a ton about it on our platforms. But so when you have all these presidents, these elected officials who have no life experiences that are going to connect them to the things that we talk about that are important for us, they rely on advisors. All of our issues get decided by their advisors, which is why in the Biden administration, you saw plans to open up a lot of wildlife habitat to solar energy. And we did videos on that. And man, we got lit up. But their advisors in that industry made the compelling case to the administration that, this is way better than oil and gas. From a wildlife standpoint, properly done oil and gas has less of a footprint than improperly sited and situated solar.
Yeah, that same example you could talk about solar too. It's like, let's go to these like cheap areas of Bureau of Land Management land and put up all these solar farms because it's cheaper and more convenient, maximize profits. Like, or maybe we could think critically, and if you're going to do solar, how about we put them on top of like some roofs, like some warehouses or something, but that's more expensive and that doesn't,
that hurts profits when it's like, well, that's not efficient. Yeah. What they mean when they say that's not efficient is not as profitable. Yeah. So my point of all this is whatever side somebody comes from, I could sit here all day and point out examples of where the advisors they're relying upon are in it for something other than our interest as hunters, anglers, and people concerned about public access and conservation.
Yeah.
And regardless of who's in power, it's our job, whether you voted for them or voted against them, to stand up and speak for the wildlife.
Yeah.
That is really what it comes down to. We are that voice that wildlife has always depended upon. And it goes back to what Theodore Roosevelt said 120 some years ago. The wildlife and its habitat cannot speak for itself, so we must and we will. And that has been an ethos of the hunting community since Roosevelt was president. And are we going to do that? Because if we don't, we are dropping the ball. A ball that's been handed to us, a baton that's been handed to us generationally. Are we going to stand up?
Yeah, and I think so many people just don't know those stories. They don't think about it. Like we said, it's like so many people think purely in money terms, in profit.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they do it with, in their mind, it's in good intentions. I'm trying to maximize profits for all these shareholders or whoever. I want jobs. I want shareholder profit. We're trying to, boost the economy.
Right.
Which I can understand, but then it's just like, it is a completely foreign concept to these people, anything about wild places and wildlife and habitat. And not only just that, but how important those things are to the people who live in these, more remote areas, or who live and go and experience and recreate amongst wildlife and cool places. It's just, that's not even a thought in their mind.
And that is a generational change in America, not just in the hunting community, but in America. So, there was this piece called The Greatest Generation. I'm trying to remember. It was hosted by Tom Brokaw. I can't remember who produced it, but it was about the generation that lived through the Depression, fought World War II. Their children became the baby boom generation. They looked at things on the American landscape, socially, environmentally, and otherwise, and said, we got to make it different. We can't continue this path. So the Cuyahoga River that dumps into Lake Erie started on fire and burned for days. And that was kind of this critical pivot to the United States. When a river starts on fire and burns for days, we got a problem.
Yeah.
We can no longer just accept the fact that most of our lakes and rivers are not fishable or swimmable. And a lot of younger people are like, you're kidding me. No, go and Google it. Cuyahoga River fire. It was the pivot point where the United States in 1972 said, we are going to pass the Clean Water Act. Enough. And all the arguments against it, President Nixon vetoed it. But Congress overrode his veto because, so if you look at it, is very similar to today. The reason it got vetoed is, do you know how much this is going to cost industry, which is going to create inflation, which is going to add prices? It's going to increase the price for everything in America if we can't dump our sewage and our paint factories and oil and gas companies and refineries can't just dump everything into the rivers and the lakes. Lake Erie was not fishable. Where I grew up in northern Minnesota, the Rainy River comes out of Rainy Lake and goes to Lake of the Woods and forms the boundary between the U.S. and Canada. In the springtime, the walleyes would come out of Lake of the Woods up the Rainy River. And this is right at when the Clean Water Act had just been passed and is starting to see changes. There were, on the Fort Francis side, the Canadian side, and the U.S. side, there is so much industrial stuff going on. There's paper mills were the biggest thing. That were dumping raw stuff into the Rainy River, where when you fished with a bobber so that your line didn't hit the bottom, because you would reel in a pile of phlegm and snot and gunk. And And I remember being like 6 or 7 years old, standing there near Lowman and Birchdale, fishing for these walleyes, casting my big bobber out there with a minnow on it. And like at eye level, I'm just learning how to read at this point. Our signs: do not eat these fish. Warning.
Dang.
Just about every fishery within that industrial complex of the Midwest around the Great Lakes, you weren't supposed to eat the fish. And now, because of the Clean Water Act, that has all changed. So Americans today can swim. They can eat the fish. They can drink water. They have potable water.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that way. And that generation of Americans said, yeah, it's going to reduce profits, or those costs are going to get passed on to us, and we're going to pay a little bit more for everything we consume.
Yeah.
But it's worth it to have clean water. So that's 1972. That's 53 years ago. It'll soon be 54 years. The American psyche, whatever you want to say, ethos, wasn't fazed by the idea that we had to make a little bit of accommodation to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't all about profits, or it wasn't at that time. They're like, we're going to do the right thing and we'll deal with whatever the costs are, because we've got to retrofit every manufacturing facility, every refinery, every paper mill, the list of things.
Yeah.
If you look at all that manufacturing that was going on around the Great Lakes, and all that was getting dumped in raw into rivers that dump into the Great Lakes, that's a huge retrofit to all those facilities. And that cost did get passed along to American consumers. And they said, you know what? Oh, well, this is what we got to do. So here we are 50 years later. Are we that concerned about every little penny of profit that ends up in either getting passed on to us, if we were to make them incur the cost and move that oil and gas development 20 miles, or to pay their costs for whatever it is? I don't care what, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's resource extraction, whatever. The costs are there. And if we don't force our generation to incur and pay those costs, we're just passing them on to somebody else, to the next generation.
Yeah.
Or we're going to say, we saved all this money, but you aren't going to have very many mule deer to hunt. The world-class mule deer herd of western Wyoming that's what we're going to sacrifice. That's a worthwhile cost to pay.
Yeah, and I think some people do think that way, but I think most
don't.
Are unaware of the cost
Right.
that we're truly paying.
Yeah.
To maximize profits.
Right.
Like, I don't think you realize what we're sacrificing and how important it is to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that's, I guess, the goal of telling these stories is
that's to the point, to kind of close that loop. That's what we're here to do. Our audience trusts us, that we're not going to be the guy who's the apologist for whatever side's in power. We're going to stand up and say, hey, maybe we voted for you or maybe we voted against you, but we're not going to accommodate your desire to do this. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to be the group that says, well, that's what you voted for. Because when Biden was in, there were people on the far fringe of the right, like, well, what'd you think? That's what you voted for. And now there's people on the far left who say, well, that's what you voted for. We're not going to be those people. We're going to be people who look at these facts and use our experience and knowledge of being involved in these issues forever. And we're going to give these facts to our audience. Unfiltered at times, hopefully without bias, and a focus on the wildlife and the habitat. Because without the habitat, we don't have the wildlife. Without the wildlife, we don't have the interests and the advocacy that we hope we have. So that's what our platforms are here to do. And that's what we're going to do. And if it pisses some people off, my grandma used to say, you've mistaken me for someone who's concerned about your hurt feelings. That's my attitude on it. And that's what this season out in the field has been, is to try to tell those stories to whatever degree we can, and looking at what's coming our way. we're going to have no shortage of stories to tell next hunting season. In fact, where we apply for tags next year is going to be so driven by these stories that are happening out there that are very consequential to what our audience finds important. And I don't care how you vote, just vote. But I do care that when the time comes to speak up, if you are going to want more wildlife out there for more tags and more opportunity, don't complain about, oh, I didn't draw my tag, and then be silent when these things are happening that are affecting the ability for us and for that wildlife to exist. So that's a wrap on a long season, Marcus. But I think it was a fun season. It may not be the normal season people expect from us, but I think the stories we tried to tell and the issues we tried to raise are worth it.
For sure. Yeah. Just a little less meat in the freezer, but a lot of stories. But it wasn't like we had some success. There was some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was,
Yeah. I would say the highlight of my season was about this time last year. I got a call from Ted Roosevelt IV, who was on the prior podcast episode. He's like, I've known him for a while, and he's like, Randy, I'm going to be 83 and I'd like to shoot one more elk. And I think you're the guy who can help me do it. And so we went over and he ended up filling his tag. And that meant a lot to me I mean, what do you tell someone in their 80s who comes to you and says, could you help me get my last deer or my last elk or whatever? You're not going to say no. You're not going to say I'm too busy. You're going to view that as like, wow, lucky me. I'm the one who they asked to do this. That was probably the highlight of my season was you and I have been on hunts where we've helped someone get their first elk. And whether or not this is Ted's last elk or not, I don't know. But to help someone who's done so much for conservation and wants to shoot an elk.
Yeah.
That was definitely a highlight point for me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, and then you did end up filming some of it, right? Because we were asking like, well, can we come film it? And you're like, oh no, we're not going to film it. And
right.
Then,
because I didn't think Ted wanted to be filmed.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I threw some of our iPhones and those little mics we use.
Yep.
I happened to just throw those in the truck. So when he's like, when's the camera guy showing up? I'm like, oh, he's already here. It's me. And fortunately that day, a friend of mine, Rob Sisson from Conserve America, happened to be over visiting with us that afternoon. And he got to be a camera guy for a little bit of it also.
Nice.
So it worked out that, yeah, we got some footage of it and of the hunt and some follow-up with Ted. It's going to take a lot of work by David to get this to a presentable episode. But I think the bigger picture of it is, the arc of his family, going back to his great-grandfather who was the president, and really somebody who was a hunter in the White House saying, I'm going to use the bully pulpit. I'm going to use this to instill this conservation ethos. I'm going to build this infrastructure, get it started to build an infrastructure where we will be speaking for wildlife and their habitat. And it's generationally continued to him, where the amount of conservation work and volunteer work he's done is just insane. And he's been that sounding board for me at times where I'll email him or call him and like, hey, Ted, I'm getting a lot of fire over this. And he'll just kind of laugh. And it was great that I got to do that. And I'd way rather help others fill their tags at this point in my life than having to fill my own. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah. But anyhow, appreciate your time, Marcus. Appreciate
Yeah.
all the great counsel you give me about how we tell these stories, because your background and training and education and storytelling through video and other ways is so far beyond I mean, it's just top notch, and I appreciate that you entertain some of my crazy ideas and you think about them and then come back to me and say, well, I've thought about the stupid, you won't say it this way, but I've thought about that idea, which was usually a stupid idea.
Oh, no.
Let me give you some thoughts about how we could maybe do this more effectively. So
rarely is there a stupid idea, I think. But no, yeah, thank you for allowing me to do it and get to call this my job. It's pretty fun to, we get to see some cool stuff, tell really cool stories.
Yeah. And thanks to the audience that follows and watches and listens. Over the years, I've come to understand how much they trust us and rely on us. And we don't take that lightly. And hopefully they find value in what we do. And when we raise the flag to say, hey, folks, it's time to take action here, take action there, they continue to do it because they have done it. And it's kind of why we're here every day. So, but anyhow, thanks for being here, folks. Thanks for following along. And thank you, Marcus.